Alrighty, it is 3 o'clock. Welcome to Replenish the Atmosphere of Discovery, where we discover the Master's plan for our lives. Today's session is titled Resistance. This is session 84. It is titled Resistance. So, to resist something or someone means that you oppose it, whether it's actively or passively. So, refusing to accept something is passive resistance, and we often use this in faith, right? Fighting against it is active resistance. Okay, so resistance can also be when you are preventing stuff from happening. In a negative sense, this would be procrastination and self sabotage, right? In a positive sense, it would be like maintaining self control, emotional maturity, or financial security. Okay, resistance is the ability to stand regardless of another force coming against you, right? Which involves your ability to control your response and the way that certain events affect you. That other force can be in the form of people, their opinions, right? Their direction or instructions for you. The other forces could also be society, family traditions, temptations, passions, so on and so forth. So, resistance is also the ability to stand regardless of another force coming against you. So we have to learn to resist the right thing. Okay. When you resist the temptation to sabotage, to fail, to procrastinate, these feelings that cause you to fail will flee. So you have to start resisting that temptation. Okay. If you don't want something, if you don't like what's happening, you must resist it and stop agreeing to it. And we don't always need verbal consent in order to agree, right? Our behaviors and our feelings can be that agreement. Lack of resistance can cause harmful things to enter and influence our spirit and even our physical body. Pressure, stress, and lack of mental strength can cause you to have low resistance, right? You don't have the ability to fight. So, I have a comment here. It says, "Is this psychology class?" No, it's not a class. It is a support system for those that may be struggling emotionally, spiritually, or mentally. So this is that support in between those phases, right? So, it takes mental strength to maintain the ability to resist even the smallest temptation, right? And your mental energy levels determine the difficulty and whether you can remain strong enough to resist those temptations. Okay. So sometimes we end up resisting what we should be accepting, right? And there's power in that as well. Resisting what you should be accepting has the power to keep you stuck. Okay. It has the power to block your forward movement. It has the power to distract you or to derail you from your purpose. Okay, so resistance does hold power no matter which way you are resisting. Your enemies, your visible or invisible enemies, right, will take a real feeling or a valid emotion and manipulate you into speaking or doing something that God forbids, right? They will use your hurt to cause depression and despair, which could open the door to agreements with death and suicide, right? And self harm. Your feelings and your emotions must submit to something as well, okay? And hopefully, if you know God, they are submitted to Him. You must resist the enemy in your emotions as well so that there isn't even a crack for them to crawl through into your feelings, right? You got to close all doors, all access. Your soul needs to remain in a state of victory. So even when your body or your mind may be weak, even when your spirit is broken, right? Your soul needs to remain a conqueror. It needs to remain an overcomer, a warrior, okay? Because your soul is the seat of your desires, your will, and your emotion. So if any of these are affected in a negative way, it will determine how you think. It determines how you feel. It determines how you behave. It determines what you believe about yourself, right? It determines what you believe about your future. And it also shapes your mindset. That's why the position and the state of your soul is so very important. So when you think about the circumstances that you feel are in opposition to the direction that you want to go in life, are you responding the same way to these circumstances every single time? Are you resistant to changing the way that you think about it? And oftentimes the same thing happens and keeps happening because you keep responding the same way, right? You refuse to respond differently. And this can be in your thinking or in your behavior. So even if your thoughts, you keep thinking the same way, you are thinking in resistance to what you say that you are wanting to change, right? And so we can convince ourselves that once we found a certain mindset that will benefit us, right? So you hear this class, you hear this session, you hear something on YouTube, you have a conversation with someone, and you find that, oh, okay, this is the way I should be thinking, right? We convince ourselves that once we find that mindset that we need, that we have adopted it, when truly are resisting what it takes to maintain it, right? And whatever you don't maintain will return back to its original state. So we can make the choice in our mind, in our thoughts, right? That this is the mindset I'm going to adopt. This is the mindset that I'm going to have, but not actually do the doing, do the part that causes you to maintain that mindset. That means when those old thoughts start coming up, you start resisting them, right? Well, if you're not resisting them, you will slowly go back to that old mindset anyway. Okay. So if you have issues with pride, if you have issues with rebellion, with ego, with stubbornness, then you most likely are resisting the wrong things and the wrong people. Okay. You are resisting the wrong things and the wrong people. You have to stop just saying you're stubborn and find the root of the stubbornness, right? Is it rejection? Is it abandonment? Is it fear? What is the root of the stubbornness? Is it bitterness, right? These unprocessed feelings and emotions will cause you to resist what would benefit you, right? In your resistance of beneficial assistance, you are unknowingly submitting to those negative emotions, right? Which means that those negative emotions are the ones directing and controlling your life, right? They also intertwine and wrap themselves up in your identity, which means that now you feel that these emotions are a part of your personality and it fortifies itself to a point that is protected by you. Why? Because if you separate from it, you begin to feel that you are losing who you are or that someone is trying to change who you are. But that's not who you are, right? It's what you have decided to submit to. And by that agreement, it blended with a positive characteristic until it was able to drive the positivity out of it, right? You have to pay attention to those unprocessed feelings and emotions because this is what happens. They intertwine themselves with your personality, and then you fortify it and make it stronger by saying this is who I am when it's not really who you are. Those negative feelings, those negative emotions have intertwined and wrapped themselves, and those positive characteristics that were meant to grow you and propel you and move you forward, and it drains all of the positivity out of it, right? Because you never want to find the root of anything, right? That's what makes you unaware that all of your positive original traits have been defiled because of the events occurring in your life were not properly assessed and processed. Okay. So this is how the way you respond to certain things, this is how that affects you 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, right? Because it wraps itself in your identity. And now you don't want to let it go because, oh, this stubbornness, that's how I am. Right? This is the way I am. When that stubbornness was not meant to cause you to be stubborn or resist beneficial help, right? And you're resisting all of the beneficial help and holding on to the people and the things and the mindsets that's causing you to fail. Okay. Resistance leads to rebellion. Resistance leads to rebellion. Your resistance can start as something peaceful, like it's just a refusal of something. But over time, it can turn into rebellion, which is active disobedience and an unwillingness to be persuaded to do the right thing, right? Which is when you don't want to be submitted to anything or anybody, that often leads you to the grave or prison, right? When you have people that refuse to submit to authority, they don't want to listen to anybody, there's only two places you're going to end up, right? If you are resisting something or someone that isn't good for you without submission to another thing that holds more power, let me repeat that. If you are resisting something or someone that isn't good for you, right? So that's doing the right thing. You're resisting something that's not good for you, but you're not submitted to another thing that holds more power. And by holds more power, I mean that it holds foundational power, right? Something that you can stand on, that you will stand on. If you don't submit to something with more power, you will eventually give in to that thing that you were originally resisting. Okay. And this is true in toxic relationships, right? Friendships, career, faith, fear, all sorts of emotions, right? If you don't submit to something that has more power than the thing you are resisting, you will end up giving in. Okay. So if you are trying to resist believing in the wrong thing, but you don't have a right thing that holds more power, you will end up believing the wrong thing. Does that make sense? Okay. If you are resisting a toxic relationship, but you don't have a beneficial relationship that you can stand on, right? You will fall for that same type of relationship, whether it's the same person or a different person with the same toxic characteristics, right? And what happens in these cases is that we resist the healthy relationships because they hold us accountable and they tell us the truth, right? But these are the ones that should hold more power, right? But you give its power over to the toxicity because that's what you keep choosing in your mind, right? That's what you keep choosing in your feelings. You're choosing the toxic feelings over the feelings that are beneficial. And even in your behavior, you're choosing the toxic behaviors over the behaviors that you should have. Okay? If you can get it out of your mind, you'll be able to get it out of your feelings, right? Which will cause you to stop being attracted to toxic behavior. Does that make sense to you all? We are resisting the wrong thing and accepting the wrong thing. And you just need to switch them, right? You need to start resisting the things that are harmful to you and accepting the things that are not harmful, okay? Avoiding something is not resisting it. Resisting means you are opposing it. Okay. So if you're avoiding it, you're not doing either one. And actually, if you are avoiding it, that is an agreement, right? Pretending it doesn't exist is not resisting it. Okay. Lying to yourself and calling it something else isn't resisting it, right? Resistance calls for you to stand against it, right? Whether you're standing against it actively or passively. So when we think we are resisting the temptation or suggestion to believe a lie, to be and feel a negative emotion, and to behave in a way opposite of our true nature, we are not if we are not standing against that thing. Okay? How we think, how we feel, and how we act proves where our agreement is, right? Even if we are saying we oppose it, what we think about it, what we feel about it, and how we act proves where our agreement is. Okay. And that's something that you should recognize when people say one thing, but you listen to their thoughts, you listen to how they feel, and you look at how they act. That will tell you if they really oppose the thing that they're saying they oppose. Okay. So, in order to maintain self control and resist unbeneficial temptations, you must start at the center of your desire, right? Where it originated from. Okay. Reprogram your thought process. It all starts with the thought, right? Which means that's renewing your mind. And then you train your brain to operate chemically under the authority of the power that is higher than any other power, right? The power of God. Now, if you have something else in that place, that is the thing that you should be resisting, because you should be submitting to God. We're trying to discover the master's plan. We might have a plan, but we can't see through eternity, right? We can't see the end and the beginning. So why would we follow our own plan, right? Not all resistance is power, right? Sometimes you are resisting because you're fearful. So resistance can be a strength, or it can release power when you are opposing what is not beneficial to you, right? Not when you are opposing what is beneficial to you, right? Then resistance becomes your weakness. It becomes your enemy when you start opposing the things that are beneficial to you. Okay. So we must learn to resist what opposes us, which are things that are not beneficial to forward movement and increase. And we must stand firm on what truly matters, right? And forward movement and increase should not be controlled by your feelings, right? Your feelings should not dictate how you move because they are temporary, right? You only make decisions from an eternal perspective, which will always be the truth, right? Which will always lead you away from the paths of death and destruction. Okay. It leads you right because you have eternity in mind, not temporary quick fixes that won't last, right? Feelings are temporary. I don't care how strongly you feel a thing, they are temporary, right? Another thought will lead you in a whole different direction and you will feel a whole different way. Feelings are temporary. And I know it's true, and you know it's true because you've been really, really, really angry, but you're not really, really angry now. You've been really, really, really sad. No matter how intense that sadness or that anger or that hurt was, it always changed. Now, you could relive the memory, right, and bring it back up, but the feeling of it is temporary. Okay. Feelings are temporary. They can be changed, right? If you change them before they become a mindset. So you can't allow your feelings to become a mindset, right? Hold on 1 second. You can't allow your feelings to become a mindset. When it becomes a mindset, it begins to affect not only you, but your generations after you, right? But also those you have influence over and their generations. So be careful about that. Some of the mindsets that we have now is because of a feeling that our forefathers had, right? That became a mindset and it began to go right on down the generation, right on down the bloodline. And we are doing things that our forefathers did based off of a feeling that should have just been temporary. Does that make sense? So as you look through your thoughts and feelings, what have you been against that you should have been in agreement with? And what are you in agreement with, right? That you should be resisting. Think about the way that you think and the way that you feel. Are some of those feelings things that you should be resisting? Are some of those thoughts things that you should be resisting, which means that you are standing against it? Okay. With every challenge that you face, with every decision that you make, there is resistance and there is submission. With every challenge you face, every event that happens in your life, every conversation you have, every decision you make, there is resistance and there is submission. You must determine if resistance will be a power or a weakness for you. Okay. When you resist what you should be accepting, you are submitting yourself to the wrong thing. Okay. When you should be accepting someone who tells you the truth, but you resist them, that means that you are submitting yourself to something that will destroy you, right? Because you're resisting the person that will tell you the truth. Okay. So whether that resistance is passive or active, when you submit to the right thing and the right people, okay, you resist what is opposing your destiny, right? You resist what is opposing the thing that is supposed to cause you to move forward, right? You begin to stand against those things that were set up to see you fail instead of agreeing with them, right? And we think that we are agreeing with them. We think we are not agreeing with them because we say we're not agreeing with them, right? But we can say we're not agreeing with something, but our thoughts are saying a different story. Our feelings are saying a different story. Our actions are saying a different story, right? So resistance is the act of opposing something, right? Either actively or passively. It can be used positively, right, to maintain self control, maturity, and purpose, or negatively as procrastination, sabotage, or fear driven rebellion. And often we unknowingly resist what benefits us due to unresolved emotions like fear, rejection, and pride, right? This misdirected resistance becomes internalized, right? And it ends up influencing our identity and our decisions. How many decisions have you made, right? That was because you were resisting the wrong thing, right? True resistance requires conscious opposition to what harms you, okay? Not opposition to what helps you. Stop opposing what is helping you, okay? If it's people, if it's places you should be in, stop opposing it because of fear. You're resisting the wrong thing, which means you are submitting to the fear. Every decision you make, whatever you are resisting, you are also submitting to something. Understand that if you resist God, you are submitting to the enemy, right? If you resist help, you are submitting to the thing that's going to harm you, right? True resistance requires for you to oppose the thing that is harming you. Stop opposing the thing that is helping you. Without a stronger foundation to submit to, truth, purpose, healthy relationships, you will fall back into those harmful patterns. So if you're in a toxic relationship, right, you're in a horrible one-sided friendship, you need to get you a relationship that is beneficial first, so you have something to stand on, right? And then break that contact with that toxic relationship, right? Because if you just try to do it without something more powerful for you to stand on, you will end up going right back into it, right? Resistance without direction or alignment with what's right becomes weakness or even rebellion, which leads to your destruction, right? It will destroy your spirit, it will destroy your mind, and it will eventually destroy your body, right? Because the things that we feel, the things that we think eventually manifest physically, right? So to use resistance as a strength, you must submit to what is right and what is eternal, right? Not just the things that are emotional and temporary. Stop submitting to your emotions and those temporary feelings. Everything you feel is temporary, it's not permanent. In that moment, you feel it's permanent. You really feel that you're going to always feel this way. You feel like I'm going to always be angry. I'm going to always be hurt. No, you're not. You're going to get over it. Trust me, you're going to get over it. The thing that brings it back is your memory. The thing that brings it back is your trigger. And you only have a trigger because of your memory, right? So the next feeling that you feel, no matter how intense you feel it, you must understand this is temporary and I cannot make a decision off this temporary feeling, right? To use resistance as a strength, You submit to what is right and eternal, right? You identify and uproot those emotional roots that are behind the harmful resistance, right? You uproot those emotional roots that are behind the harmful resistance, right? Then you have to change your thoughts and feelings before they become damaging mindsets. Okay. So feelings are temporary, right? But when they intertwine with your identity, they can become mindsets, which passes generation to generation, not just to your family line, but to the people you have influence over. So if you're a leader in any capacity, if you're a teacher, if you're a politician, if you're a pastor, if you're an employer, that mindset will influence those people that you lead as well, right? So ultimately, every challenge presents a choice between resistance and submission. You choose which one, right? Your power lies in resisting what threatens your growth and submitting to what strengthens your destiny, right? So resistance can be a power or it can be a weakness for you. You determine. You determine what you resist and what you submit to, right? You want to submit to the right things and resist the wrong things, but you're doing both, right? So you determine which one it is. If you resist the right things, you are automatically submitted to the wrong things. Does that make sense? And so this is a process that starts in our thoughts, right? If you're not resisting the thoughts that you don't want to think, you're submitting to them. Does that make sense? If you're not resisting the feelings that you don't want to feel, you're submitting to them, right? And then those feelings can become intertwined with your identity. So now you feel like this is who I am. So now it is protected by you. The thing that's harming you is it is being protected by you, right? So think about what you are resisting. Think about the people that have come into your life that you have resisted, right? Should you have? Should it have been something that you were accepting of? And how many things have you accepted? And when I say things, I mean thoughts, feelings. If you think about every decision you had to make, what did you accept and what did you resist? Right? I know we like to make decisions without thinking, but that's not helpful. That's not good. Right? Because we're making decisions based off of um we're making decisions based off of temporary things. We're making decisions based off of temporary feelings, right? So think about that. Is your resistance, or will your resistance be a weakness, or will it be a strength for you? Okay. Think about the things that you are resisting. And so that concludes our session for today. I'm going to close out of the live and go back to the Zoom. And I will see you guys shortly.